All right, let's talk about something that is a huge, and I mean huge challenge in medicine today: chronic pain. It's this incredibly complicated, super personal thing, right? And our search for answers has, honestly, taken us down some pretty tough roads. So let's get right into it. I want to start with a question that kind of frames this whole conversation. For so long, the go-to answer for pain has been, well, a pill. The goal was simply to make the pain go away. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it entirely? What if we've been asking the completely wrong question all along? So, to really get why that might be the wrong question, we have to talk about what chronic pain even is. Because here's the thing: it's not just some injury that's taking forever to heal. No, it's way deeper than that. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of your entire nervous system. And this definition is absolutely key. Look, pain that lasts for more than 3 months isn't just a lingering signal anymore. It's now officially recognized as a distinct disease state. Think about that for a second. For so long, we saw it as just a symptom, but now we know when it becomes chronic, the pain is the problem. It's a disease in its own right.
And man, is it complicated. Pain is so much more than just a physical thing. It's not a simple message going from, say, your back to your brain. Nope. It gets all tangled up with psychological factors, your thoughts and emotions, and emotional stuff like anger or anxiety. They all feed into each other and can create this really nasty, vicious cycle. So if you're going to treat it, you have to look at the whole person, not just the part that hurts.
Okay, so if pain is this complicated, how on earth did we end up relying so heavily on just one type of pill? Well, that brings us to the promise and the problems of opioids. At first, the logic made a lot of sense. For acute pain, like right after surgery or if you break a bone, opioids work. They work really well. So the medical world kind of made this logical jump, right? They thought, hey, if this works great for a few days, why wouldn't it work for chronic pain, for months or even years? But this is where things get really, really tricky. A huge part of the problem was that we got the language all mixed up when talking about the risks. To really get what's going on, we have to be super clear about what certain words mean, because people started throwing around terms like dependence and addiction as if they were the same thing, and they are absolutely not. Okay, first up, physical dependence. This is just your body doing what bodies do. It's a totally normal, predictable biological response. If you take a drug like an opioid for a while, your body gets used to it. It adapts. So if you stop cold turkey, yeah, you're going to feel pretty awful. That's withdrawal. But listen, this is an expected outcome. This is not the same as addiction. Then you've got tolerance. Again, totally natural. It's when your body adapts and over time, you find you need a higher dose to get that same level of pain relief. It can definitely complicate things, for sure, but it's still a predictable biological process. And say it with me, this is also not addiction. And that brings us to addiction. This is the one that's completely different. Addiction isn't just your body adapting. It's a neurobiologic disease. It's all about behavior, the compulsive need to use the drug even when you know it's hurting you, your job, your family. You lose control. That is the crucial difference that gets missed all the time. All right, so now that we've cleared that up, let's take a hard look at what really happens with long-term opioid use. Because when you actually dig into the data, that shiny promise we talked about, well, it starts to fall apart fast. And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. It's a trade-off, and frankly, it's a terrible one. The research shows that any benefits you get from opioids for chronic pain are actually pretty small, and they seem to just fade away over time. But the harms, the risks, oh, they are significant, and they just get worse and worse the longer you're on them and the higher your dose gets. What's the number you see here? It's 0. That is the number of high-quality randomized trials, the gold standard of medical research, that have ever proven that taking opioids long-term actually improves pain or helps you function better or improves your quality of life. 0. Despite how common they became, the hard evidence for long-term benefit just isn't there. And on the flip side, the risks are anything but 0. They are very, very real. Just look at this. A huge review, we're talking over 4.3 million people, found that almost 10% of them ended up with dependence or an opioid use disorder, nearly 1 in 10. That is a staggering number. And it gets even more serious. The stakes are literally life and death. This 10-year study is just stark. It found that people prescribed a stronger opioid like morphine had a 12-fold higher risk of dying from any cause,
Let me say that again. Not 12%, but 12 times higher. That's a massive, massive difference. Okay, so if opioids aren't the long-term answer, what is? Well, the good news is there is an alternative. In fact, there's a whole toolbox full of effective strategies that have nothing to do with that prescription pad.
And this is what that toolbox looks like. It's what experts call a multimodal approach, which is just a fancy way of saying we need to attack the problem from all sides. You've got different types of medications, like some antidepressants or anticonvulsants, that can actually help turn down the volume on pain signals. Then you've got physical therapy, which is absolutely crucial for stopping that vicious cycle of pain leads to not moving, which leads to more pain. And then, and this is a real game changer, you've got psychological approaches like CBT. This is all about learning to change your relationship with pain, to manage the thoughts and emotions that make it feel so much worse. It's about giving you the tools to be in control.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? To really treat pain effectively, you have to look at the whole picture, the physical, the emotional, and the psychological. You can't just isolate one piece. When you bring them all together, you get a plan that's so much more powerful and so much more sustainable than any single pill could ever be. So let's bring this all home. What's the big takeaway here? I think it's this. We need to stop searching for a magic bullet and start focusing on building a much, much better toolbox for ourselves and for the people we care about. And that requires a huge shift in how we think about the goal. The goal isn't just to take a pain score on a chart from an 8 down to a 4. The real goal is to improve someone's quality of life. It's about helping people get back to doing the things they love, to increase their function so they can live a full life that isn't completely controlled by their pain. Which really leaves us with one final big question. When we're talking about lasting relief from something as complex as chronic pain, should we be looking for a stronger pill or a smarter plan? All the evidence we've looked at today seems to point in one very clear direction. Thanks so much for joining me.